come together to share our story, share our love, share your faithfulness. May the words that we speak touch the lives of many. May this be distributed to many somehow, some way. We thank you that the time has come to share our story. We ask that you bless it, Lord, right now. Holy Spirit, think through our minds, speak through our voices, and allow the word of God to come forth, and the faithfulness and the glory of God to be seen. We thank you for the lives that will be changed, hearts that will be open, and lives that will be touched from our story. So we honor you, we praise you, we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
But then we finally got married, right? Finally crossed over to the marriage side. And that's when it really started hitting, even at the wedding. We are married, right? And like we said, like that night that we got married, they already started. People already said, oh, have fun on that honeymoon. Don't make too many babies. You know, all of those, I guess, lighthearted jokes were said. And I mean, it's expected. Like, it's kind of cliche, I think, you know, so it's kind of like, you know, but I think that's when the pressure was definitely on, because now at that moment, I feel like you were 21, I was 23. Mm-hmm. At that moment, me mentally, I had thought about, you know, what people said, and I took that kind of heavy, and I was like, oh, people are expecting a baby. And I wasn't at the point where I'm at now, where it's like, I don't care if people are expecting a baby. If we don't want it right now, or if it's not God's perfect timing, so be it. But being that young, I think you kind of hold weight to certain people's words. And that was interesting for me. How about you? Like, do you hold weight, like, at that age, like 21?
Oh, yeah. I was holding weight. It was interesting because I would hear that. Then I hear the folks say, take your time. Right. You're young, take your time with that. Mm-hmm. So it was in between. I think at that point I knew, hey, I was about to be a GA, and we're about to move to Oklahoma. So in my mind, I was like, I don't think we're ready for kids. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think too much of it let's go out here and have kids. Mm-hmm. And they can say what they want to say. Not that I didn't care. I think I took heavy, but at the same time, I was like realistic. Like, ain't no way I can take care of a kid on $1,000 a month I'm making. Just saying. So.
No, yeah, I could definitely see that. So we finally moved to Oklahoma a week after our wedding. Mm-hmm. And I would say probably about a month or two after we kind of settled in, you know, got acclimated to our situation. I remember we were taking a walk. I laugh at myself now. I remember we were taking a walk, and I asked Cadero the question. I was like, you know, when do we want to have kids? Like, of course, this is probably something that we should have talked about. I feel like we did a little bit talk about it, but now it's like, okay, we married, like we able to have kids. God said we can have kids now because like we married, you know. So it was one of those things that was like, let's have a real conversation about it. So I asked you, I said, you know, what are you thinking as far as timeline? And you told me what? Do you remember?
I was like, we'll just see what happens.
You put a number on it. You said like 2 to 3 years.
Did I?
Yes, you did. I remember this conversation. And I said 2 to 3 years.
At that point, I was like, let me graduate with my master's. Hopefully, I got a decent. I was like, speaking in existence, I'm gonna have a good job. Mm-hmm. Then in that, give me that first year in the job, and then we start having them babies. It was good. It's been 2 to 3 years of us hanging out. Mm-hmm. So it was almost like I was like, yo. All that stuff we talk about, like we hear other people say, take the time and spend some time together. That's just out the door. We just gotta have these kids right now.
Right. And y'all, when he told me 2 to 3 years, my heart was broken. Right. I said 2 to 3 years. I said, and he was like, well, when you think about having kids? I was like, I don't know.
Ready
now. Start the trying process, not knowing that in our 12th year later,
we still ain't had no kids.
you know. But I said, we can at least start and try and all of that stuff. So we were firm believers. If it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. If it's not, then it's not the right timing, right? So it was one of those things. At that point, I knew that, you know, from the previous, that my period was irregular. I wasn't ovulating like I should have been and all of that stuff. So I told Kadira, I think we should at least try some assistance. With that assistance came just like it was a pill to help try to get things moving and shaking and ovulating and all that stuff. Nothing happened. Nothing. There was no type of advancement in production of eggs and all of that stuff. Like, there was just medicine at that point did not help. And I will say that I was on a medication that made me feel bad. I didn't like it. Changed my hormones. Didn't change who I was, but it changed my attitude a few times. Just a few times. But I was like, you know, this is for the baby. I'll just be mood swinging for the baby. You know, if that's what that entails, then I was ready for it. Didn't happen. Tried it a second time. Nothing happened at all. He tried to up my my dosage. At that point, still nothing. So we took a break, right?
Yeah. We did have like unprotected sex, like, but it wasn't like a thing where we were trying to calculate exactly, all right, this is when she ovulating to do it.
Yeah, we weren't the type to, and nothing's against, eventually we became that type later down the line. But in the beginning, we weren't that type where we were calculating ovulation and, okay, got to get it right now type of thing. But this was just like, let's try to take some oral medication to help me ovulate. And if I did, great. If I didn't, whatever. So we took a break. You know, that was what, 2009? Well, that was probably 2010, 2011, or whatever. Fast forwarding to 2015. Remember, during this whole time, we've been having unprotected sex. Still no baby. 2015, I got diagnosed with PCOS. PCOS was something I had never heard of before. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know it existed. But it's pretty much a hormonal disorder that, you know, you have cysts on your ovaries and it's hard for you to ovulate and all of that stuff. So I became aware of PCOS. When they told me the symptoms, I said, check, check, check. This is pretty much me in a nutshell. I remember the doctor saying that it was something that didn't make having children impossible. Like, you could still get pregnant from it, but it made it harder. So at that age, I think back in my mind was kind of like, oh Lord, here we go. Like, it's making things hard. And that was the last thing I wanted to hear at that point. But I was diagnosed with that. Was there any feelings you had when I got diagnosed? Or do you remember that time? I know you remember that time, but
getting diagnosed and us having no clue. I think my biggest concern was how she was gonna feel. Like, we had been trying over the years prior, and didn't have this diagnosis. So one, we hadn't heard of this diagnosis and all these other doctor visits. Now we're getting to this point, and now she's like, you hear this, and you're like, first thing is, it's harder to have kids. So it's like, oh man, like, this is gonna be an uphill battle for us, and I'm the reason we can't have kids. And I did not want Hope to feel like us not having kids at this time was her fault. And I didn't want her to put that pressure and all that and have guilt of saying, like, I can't give him what
Lord,
he
here
wants.
You go.
Oh, baby.
No, it's fine. Keep talking. I'm fine over here. You know?
And I think that was the moment. I think You kind of broke down, or?
I did have a breakdown moment. I mean, definitely during that time, I had thought about that. Like, that was it starts getting in your mind, right? Because one, throughout all my teenage years, I was, like I said, irregular. I always thought about what would it be like to grow up like this? Like, is it going to affect me having children? So when I got diagnosed with PCOS, and then, I mean, the whole thing being a hormonal disorder, like, I was a wreck. My hair was starting to thin. I was gaining weight. Like, it was just like a whole situation. So I'm like, here I am, one, worried about what I look like, even though I know he supported me like the entire time. Like, he just did not, I mean, I don't know if you cared or not, but you acted like you didn't care. I know you probably didn't care. But I'm like, now I'm thinking about my parents. Now I'm thinking about, can I even have kids? And so it was tough, like, just being diagnosed with that and it getting in my head and thinking, like, am I going to be the reason that we don't have kids? Right? So I thought about that. But yet there was a part of me that was relieved that, one, I knew what it was now. Like, I knew that, okay, they could at least associate some sort of diagnosis with what is happening, you know, within me or whatever. So that wasn't hard. I mean, that was hard. It was hard to explain to family because, you know, I had to tell them, especially like my mom, sister, like, this is what I'm dealing with. I need y'all to pray for me in this moment. So it kind of made, which was good, like, other people aware that PCOS exists, because, like I said, I had no idea what it was. But yeah, so after that, I remember getting on a fertility drug because she said that now that we knew how we could kind of navigate and try to move forward. And I think that at that point, that was 2015. 2016, after I got the diagnosis, I went for more fertility treatment. Found a doctor. Seemed nice in the beginning. I will not name any names because I'm not that petty. But seemed nice in the beginning. And it happened. We got pregnant.
Did.
2016.
Halloween. We were in
Halloween, we found out that we were pregnant. I remember this day so clearly. It was, Kadero was working football at a university, and I remember taking a test that morning. He was already gone, and it came up very faint. And I was like, this was the first time that I had ever seen 2 lines on a pregnancy test. So I took the test with me to the football game, and I left it in the car. Went through the whole football game. At this point, I played the card that I wasn't feeling well because I didn't want people to say, oh, Hope's not drinking wine. What's wrong with her? Is she pregnant? Like, all that stuff. Like, I was trying to be incognito. So I was drinking water all day. Kadero, finally, the game was over. That was the longest game ever. Like, to hold that information from you, like, I was struggling, and I didn't know what to say. I just wanted to be by myself. But he had no clue. And then the game was finally over, and he got in the car, and I said, Kadero, look, do you remember this moment?
No, because I thought we found out in the bathroom.
We did, but this was the first pregnancy test with the 2 lines. Kadero's words were, no, we're going to the store, and I want something digital that says pregnant on it, right?
That's right.
So after
That's right.
So after the football game, we go to the store, and at this point, money was no object, right? I was like, give me the most expensive pregnancy
Digital
test, digital,
not pregnant or
pregnant. I need it spelt out, right? So we go to the store. We finally get home. Halloween. We're in the bathroom, and this happens. So we literally just took a pregnancy test, and we're waiting on the results. Okay. right.
You want me to grab it?
But you don't look until. Don't look.
Okay. There you go.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay, so you guys probably can tell that we were pregnant. So after that moment, we were just crying tears of joy because at this point that was 2016, so that was what, 7 years?
We have been married for 7 years.
At that point we have been married for 7 years. We have been trying for 7 years. We've been unprotected for 7 years.
I was in a good space.
We were in a good space financially.
Yeah, we was in a good space.
So we were just like, God, this is the moment. We thank you. You know, it's just, it was surreal. We were crying. We were happy. We were all over the place, to be honest. And it was a good feeling. So we were excited. We were going home to, you had a football game at Maryland. You're getting emotional. Why?
Just continue.
No, I want you to be in the moment.
I think I'm already going forward, though. More so than... I was excited. Super excited. Super excited.
Super excited. So we go to Maryland. We traveled for that game. Because Maryland, y'all know, we're from Virginia. So that was really close for family to come up for that game. So we're thinking of all these ways that we can tell our family and all of that stuff. Tell our families. Everyone's ecstatic because they know for the past 7 years we have been trying our hardest to get pregnant. Come back, and I kind of felt like I didn't know what to expect the way I felt. I didn't know if... I know that you're supposed to have mild cramping in the beginning. Didn't know exactly how that was supposed to feel. Started having cramps that just didn't feel normal. We went and they wanted to check my HCG levels. So check that. They were not doubling the way they were supposed to. I went there every day. Got bruised, got pricked. I have very weak veins, so they really tend to this one arm. So constant stabbing. It was a nightmare. And every day I would get bad news. Every day the numbers were not doing what they were supposed to. I remember they wanted to schedule an ultrasound. Oh, you need some.
Sorry.
They wanted to schedule an ultrasound, and they did, and there was nothing on the screen. This point, Cadero had left work to be with me on this ultrasound, and I asked the ultrasound technician, I said, there's supposed to be something on the screen. And she never confirmed because she said my doctor would talk to me about it. So then we leave. Very quiet ride back to Cadero's job. And at this point, I feel like I failed you. excited. Like, we were just so ready. And I remember my doctor giving me the option of DNC, which was them to go in and just clean everything out. And I said, if I'm going to miscarry, I want to do it on my own. And just her bedside manners. She's telling me that God couldn't even save my child if we wanted him to. At that point, I had a family member say, well, at least you lost it this early instead of further down the line, because that would have been worse. And I think hearing that in that moment was painful, because we were just excited. Like, we were excited for a positive result. We were excited for the possibility of having a baby. And those weren't the words I wanted to hear in that moment. But you take all of that and you got to give it to God. And it was one of those things the doctor said, well, call me once you miscarry and we can start the process all over again. I said, I need a moment to digest what just happened. And I don't know, if any doctors are wondering or watching, just give us a little time, because for me, that was my first pregnancy. I was not ready to just move on. I know that y'all deal with this day by day, but for me, that was something that I wasn't ready to start the next day, How did you feel as I take my break that I need?
I'm the type that at the end of the day, God has placed this woman in my world to make sure she has everything she needs. I'm loving my wife like Christ loved the church. So when she hurts, I hurt. And I remember when she did miscarriage, you said it happened and you drove to my job, and I was kind of speechless, and I literally just ran out of my office at work, and I just held her. And it's one of those things that you lose a life, and it's tough, and it was one of those things I wanted to ensure to let her know she's not a failure. There's nothing that will separate us. I didn't want this to be a thing that divided us. And I just wanted to make sure that she knew I was there for her through it all. And I held her. That's all. She needed me to be there, and I wanted to be there. And for me as a man, it hurt to see my wife hurt. And I just, we try to suck it up and just be strong. And we had those, I think I had maybe moments to myself. But at that point, I cried with her, and I was going to be there for my wife. And that was the main thing.
And honestly, it was so painful, emotionally, but yet physically as well. That miscarriage was hard. I remember being in the bed. I remember bleeding. I was about to say bleeding out. Didn't bleed out, but I remember bleeding really bad. I remember I needed the heating pad. I mean, it was just a scene. And I even remember after I had fully miscarried, it even took a long time before I even wanted to have sex, to be honest, because it was so much going on down there that I was you take that on as a woman as well. You take on having a miscarriage, yet having a husband who also, thank God, Kadero understood and was patient with me. But it's emotionally, I wasn't fully ready. Physically, I didn't know if I was ready because I didn't know all that was going on. But I thank you for being patient with me. And so it was just tough. It was tough. And then you have to tell your family that you had just told a few weeks ago that you were pregnant. That I remember sending that text out, and we were trying to think of the words of what to say. And I just told them at this time we need space and time, but we'll explain everything later to the best of our ability, and talk when we're ready. And I thank God that our family gave us that space that we needed. But yeah, that was hard. And so after that, we did take a break. So you kind of touched on this, but I do remember thinking I had a breakdown moment at our second place in Wisconsin. And I remember at that point, I just had this, and the enemy was all up in my head. And I remember having this moment, and it was hard to express to Kadero how I was feeling, because I didn't want to bring it up. Like, I didn't want it to be a thing. And then we started talking about the whole kids thing, and Kadero said, let me ask you this. He said, do you feel like I would leave you if you were not able to have kids? That's when I broke down. Because it's like he knew, and I thought I had stopped crying, but it's probably coming again. He knew, somehow he knew that that's what I was thinking. And as a woman, as a wife, knowing that this is something that we both have wanted, but just to see like him light up around other kids, to see him, admiring kids out in the grocery store, like interacting with them, and just how great he was, because you even kept some kids for side money, right? And just knowing how awesome he would be as a father, and me carrying around this guilt of what if I can't make you a father?